And good evening, I'm David Scott. Thanks for joining us tonight. Well, the polls close in an hour. If you have not voted, you're certainly not alone. Turnout today incredibly low, maybe the lowest ever for a municipal election in Austin. Travis County Clerk Dana DeBevois says turnout will meet early projections. Only about 10% of registered voters will cast ballots today. Polls close at 7. You still have time. At the top of the ballot, the race for mayor of Austin. Bridget Shea and Clay Defoe challenging incumbent Lee Leffingwell. 3 city council seats also on the ballot for places 2, 5, and 6. All 3 have challengers trying to unseat the incumbents. There are also citywide propositions in Lakeway and Rollingwood. Municipal elections for mayor and city council seats in several surrounding communities. We've got live team coverage of Election Day, beginning with Chris Sadeghi with Mayor Lee Leffingwell's re-election campaign. Chris?
David, the mayor will be watching the results come in here at Schultz Garden along with Councilmember Mike Martinez. Both are vying for another term. We talked to the mayor at his home earlier today, and he said the biggest challenge with this election is the low voter turnout. As you mentioned, about 10% of registered voters here in Travis County went to the ballot box, and you can see these numbers posted at the City Hall voting location. Not exactly what you would call a big turnout when it comes to deciding elected officials in the city. Leffingwell said he hopes this will be the last May election in Austin. He thinks if this election had taken place in November, you'd have been looking at about 60% turnout instead of 10, but he did his part today to get people in to vote and found that for some it's difficult.
We've been doing our best to get out the vote, and we've had people on the telephone all week long, and especially, I don't know if you've been over to headquarters, but there are a lot of folks over there making phone calls, just reminding people. And a lot of them, we have to give them information about where to go vote. That's been a source of confusion.
And Leffingwell actually proposed moving this election to November. He was outvoted by the council, but that decision will be made by the voters who do show up in November to make that permanent change to the city charter to have all elections in November. But first things first, the polls for this election close in about an hour. Stay tuned to KXAN.com and KXAN later tonight. We'll have reaction from the winners and losers of these big races. For now, we're live in downtown Austin. Chris Sadeghi, KXAN News.
Thanks, Chris. 2 candidates hoping to unseat the mayor, Bridget Shea and Clay Defoe. Our Omar Lewis caught up with Shea as she'd been working today to get out her vote.
Good evening, Dave. We met up with challenger Bridget Shea, who was out at polling locations and at her headquarters making those last-minute phone calls. And she tells us she's using every minute left in the election to drive her message home to voters. With what looks like a record low voter turnouts, Shea was making personal phone calls to get more people out to the polls. Volunteers of all ages joined the Shea campaign to get the word out by making posters and shaking hands, with the goal of beating Mayor Leffingwell. And a little less than an hour left until the voting polls close, Shea says she's working hard to make sure more people participate in Austin's future.
It has been a really low turnout. I don't know if it's because the weather's nice or what, but it's really urgent for people to get out and vote. It's our city, so get out and have your say about the future.
And Shea tells me she's both confident and hopeful the voting numbers will play out in her favor tonight. She and her supporters will be at Mexita's restaurant in East Austin, where we will be as well, keeping you updated on the results tonight. Omar Lewis, KXAN News.
The other challenger in the race for mayor, Clay Defoe. He's been an outspoken critic of Mayor Lee Leffingwell's leadership, especially when it comes to what he calls corporate welfare. He says he's been pleasantly surprised by positive feedback from voters.
People that really agree with us and appreciate my stance on the corporate welfare, saying no to giving millions of our tax revenue and subsidies away to these major corporations like Formula One and Apple.
Defoe will be joining supporters to watch the election returns at Fado Irish Pub at 4th and Lavaca.